Devine, welcome to Leaving the Lies and Telling Your Truth. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe our page on YouTube. Also, join our group in Facebook that is also called Leaving the Lies and Telling Your Truth. How are you doing today, Mel?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I would like to introduce our guest today, Brandon Devine. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. Thank you for asking. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with us, Brandon. I am excited to have yet another man come on and express what he's gone through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no problem.
So we're just going to jump right in with the questions, and the first one's probably going to be real simple. When did you join the House of Yahweh and how?
All right. I was 5 years old. It was 1988.
Well,
Just a young kid. My grandmother was searching for the truth, and my uncle just he ran into a guy at a gas station, and he asked him, like, how come my uncle's working there, and he asked him, like, how come you never come in on Saturdays? Because he come in every other day of the week. Weird question. And he just dropped one of the pamphlet, like it was like one of the Sabbath day pamphlets.
wow.
And then, like, the next week he dropped in the name, and my uncle just took him home and put him on the table in the kitchen, and my grandmother read them. And that was part of her journey to search for the truth.
There you go.
Yeah.
What was your first impressions when you got there? What was your first impression of the House of Yahweh?
Well, it's funny. I think you guys were some of the first people that I ever met when I was there back then. It was a Pentecost, 88, and I was just a kid, and I just wanted to play with other kids. And there was a lot of them around my age at that time. And it was at the old feast grounds, which is now the press room, and they had, like, the merry-go-round and the swing set and all that stuff. And I think there was only the Canadian people. They were the only ones that had campers. Everyone else had tents.
Remember that.
And so it was just like a big camp, you know. And of course, it was only one day, so there was really nothing. It was just a day of fun, and then
Right.
the next day we left. And it was the following feast, the Tabernacles, that everything kind of, that was the whole 7-day thing, and that's when you really got to know everybody. It wasn't just like just meeting them. You got to know them and
The full,
hang out.
being fully immersed.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Did you go to school in the House of Yahweh?
I did. At very first, so we moved. I want to say it took about a year. Yeah, about a year.
Okay.
And then my grandmother convinced my mom and everybody to move to Abilene. And so we did. And that first year, I went to Bowie Elementary in Abilene for about a half a year. And then I got pulled and put into they called it the Ilia School. And I did that. And there was two sections. There was one in Clyde for the Clyde students, and then there was one in Abilene for the Abilene students. And so it was kind of split. But there was one teacher, and she taught all the grades. And she was very, very mean. I do not, man, I didn't know if you guys would remember her, but she was a mean lady. Her name was Karen. That's all I know. Her name was Karen. I don't know her last name. I don't remember. It was way long ago.
So, Brandon, trivia question time, real quick. No, because I don't think you know this.
Okay.
Do you remember when Karen, because I know who you're talking about,
Yeah.
quit? They actually brought in other teachers. Do you remember any other teachers that you may have had?
I remember you were my teacher once. That was in when they combined both of them, and they had it in Eula,
Mm-hmm.
in the brick schoolhouse. Yeah, and me and one other person, a young man around my age. We were the class clowns, and man, you had a name for us. Yeah, I can't remember the name. But
You don't remember it either?
it was like the Doobie Brothers or something like that. We were both the class clowns, and she knew it, and I spent a lot of time in the corner that year, I think.
Okay, in my defense, Mel, as a matter of fact, Melody, you were still there when I was teaching. I was very round and pregnant with Sarah Beth. So I was probably the crankiest, meanest teacher there was, because I just was so miserable. But I remember that class. That class was so much fun. And yes, I do remember Brandon and his friend. That was just a little trivia, a little fun point to bring out there.
Yeah, I don't remember you ever really being mean. I loved my middle school, I guess, grades going through there. That was fun. Like, I did learn, and I got really blessed to have people that would actually teach the curriculum and do those things. So like I was able to advance in my knowledge with school and stuff like that. And, so I liked those years. That was fun. And I had a little school crush on you too. So that kind of helped.
Well, thank you.
I love it.
Another fun story. Wow, you're just taking me right back to memory lane. My dad came in to teach them government.
Oh, wow.
He did. He did it fun for them. I think you guys enjoyed it.
I'm sure we did. I don't remember that particular aspect of it, but there was one teacher. It was after you were done, either you went and had your baby or something like that, and they started rotating teachers through. And one guy, me and my friend, the class clowns, we found this guy's weakness. His name was Wayne. He had real Coke bottle glasses. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
He was an older guy, but he was in the Air Force, and all we had to do was mention something about planes. And then school day was over. We got a lesson about planes.
Well, kids figure that stuff out real quick.
Oh yeah. And it was mine and my friend's job to take them off track.
Yes. Yeah, but the whole class was fun. Back to the seriousness of it. You just took me straight down memory lane. Thank you for that, Brendan. We know that your mother is highly respected and of a leadership position in the house of Yahweh. How did this affect you coming up?
Quite a bit, actually. I would say once I reached probably my teenage years, it was expected of me to no longer be a kid. I had a reputation to uphold. It wasn't my own reputation. It was her reputation. Because as a child, I'm a reflection of her and her teachings and how she represents her household, things of that nature, if you know what I mean. Right. So like, held to a higher standard, I guess you could say. And it was a little rough. Like that's a lot to take in for a 12, 13, 14-year-old, kid. I just wanted to go to school, come home, watch cartoons, and that wasn't what was expected of me.
This is kind of leading me into a question I didn't anticipate asking. So, but okay. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But has that affected the way you've raised your own children? And if so, how has that affected the way you raise your kids?
It has, actually, a lot. Matter of fact, my wife, sometimes she's got to be like, hey, take it easy a little bit, because I'm broad on both sides of the spectrum. One side, I'm strict because of the way that I was raised was strict, and that's what I know, but then also very lenient at times because I don't want to be like that. So it's hard to find that middle ground of when it's time to be strict, when it's time to be lenient, and it gets confusing at times. And now that I have, my oldest daughter is 11, so she's getting about the age that I was when I was held at that higher standard. So it's like, I don't want to be how I was raised, but at the same time, I don't want to raise a little, little craphead. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and that's finding a way to moderate parenting can be difficult under normal circumstances. So I can see how that would be something you would struggle with. Certainly, that makes sense.
So
Um,
now I've got to ask a question, Mel. I'm
you
sorry.
do that.
So we just did an interview with Sarah Beth, my daughter.
Yeah.
And in that interview, she said she got away with a lot more than the average typical child. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was no longer in there. Were you held to a different, stricter standard than the other children? As a child, before the age of 12, Brandon.
Mm-hmm. I would say yes, only because when my mom married, she married someone who was a lot different than the other people that were there. He was very strict. My first impression of him was, as soon as they got married, I was grounded for a week. I mean, that was because I was told something, and I was not to tell anybody. And of course, this was 1990, so I was 8 years old. No, 8 years old, and you can't tell an 8-year-old secrets.
Right.
And it wasn't a big deal. What it was, and I'll tell the story. It's nothing, it's not a big deal now. We were going to stay in someone else's house because him and his wife were going to Jerusalem for like 3 months, and we were going to house sit for them. And it was kind of like, as soon as they got married, we were moving into this place, and it was right down the street from one of my best friends. And I had to tell him, hey, dude, I'm going to live right down the road from you. And I did, and we moved in, and I couldn't see him for a week because I was grounded.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's a very simple thing, and so it kind of tarnished my respect for him.
Well, it probably started the whole relationship off on a bad note, and certainly, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and a lot of people struggle with this, just inside or outside of the house of Yahweh. Being a step parent can certainly be a difficult thing, but I've always went with the knowledge that when you come into a relationship, you kind of leave the discipline and stuff to the real parent for a while until the kids actually get to know you and trust you, because you're going to end up with a situation like that, to where then the kids view you, the new step parent, as the bad guy. And that is not the way you want to start out any step parent stepchild relationship. It really tarnishes the
it did
bond.
affect it to the point to where I probably, being that young, I was 8. So over time, eventually I called this guy Dad. And
because you wanted to?
Yeah. But I think that situation postponed that step in our relationship, because it possibly could have been a lot sooner. Because I did grow to like the guy. Like, he was very caring. Like, there was times where he disciplined me and he cried and I didn't. Like, he had emotions that I didn't have. I was more, upset, pissed off, whatever happened. But that was earlier. He changed a lot as I got older. I think he expected more out of me because he was an elder. He was an elder, before him and my mom even got married. So I was, just brought into this relationship that, as soon as they got married, I was already expected.
You were already the child of an elder, like in a day.
Yep. I went from having a single parent to being in an elder's family.
Right. Yeah, that's an adjustment.
I'm sorry.
Brandon, at what age did you begin working for the House of Yahweh?
It was actually a situation why it happened. I was out playing with my friends at the press room. My mom was already a secretary there, answering phones and things like that at the time. I would say I was 12. And at this time, there was what they called the book room. At this time, it was just a storage area in a old decrepit. When it was the old feast grounds, you would have recognized it as the laundry room. That's where they had the laundromat.
Okay, I know where that was.
Yep, and they gutted all that stuff out and they turned it into a storage area before they took all that stuff out and turned it into an extra work area.
Okay.
But it had, these little sliding glass windows that went up and down, kind of like camper windows, or what you would see on a bus, like a school bus.
Yeah.
And it slides down. And we were playing around that building, and I broke one of the windows, and it was already cracked. Someone was inside, and I was tapping on it, and I tapped on the cracked area, and the piece fell out. And so I got in. I wouldn't say I got in trouble, but I was required to pay for the window, and to do that, I was told that I could work it off. So I worked for about 2 weeks repaying this window, and then after the 2 weeks, where I thought, okay, I've done my due debt, they started giving me a little envelope with some money in it. And I guess at that point, I was dedicated to the work of Yahweh, and I could no longer leave. But I didn't know that until I got older and wanted to leave.
Right. Wow.
It was told to me that as soon as I accepted that envelope, that was my pledge to work for Yahweh forever.
Wow. Okay. So
I want to know who told you that.
Yeah.
Can you name a name, or just
yeah.
was it an elder?
He just named it. Go ahead.
Dowel.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting.
So you were 12 years old, working 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Is that correct?
No, it was noon to 5 because I was still going to school.
Okay.
And we got out at noon, and the bus took us to the press room, and then I worked there, like gluing covers onto book Yahwehs and stuff like that.
And then when did you stop going to school? Did you actually graduate school?
Okay, so I got to the point to where it was time to start the high school years, and I was given a choice. I could continue to go to the Ilya school through 1 or 2 of my high school years, and the plan was to shut the school down. So I would have never graduated. I knew it was going to get shut down, and I was reaching the age to where it was time to work full time. So I was given the choice to do correspondence school through, I think at the time, what was it? It's like Harcourt High School out in Pennsylvania, and now it's something else. I have the diploma still, but I chose to do the correspondence. And in doing so, of course, the girl that I liked at the time, she was still going to school. She started liking another boy, and a whole bunch of drama. But I did do the school in record time. I think I graduated in it was 26 months or something like that. I did my 4 years in 26 months. And but it put me on track because I was behind going to the Ilya school. Right. They didn't do grades based on your age, kind of like they do now. So I was able to graduate around the time I was just about to turn 18. So 2000, I graduated from there and was able to do that.
Wow.
But I was working full time in the sound room at the time and doing my schoolwork on my lunch break and after school.
So you were no longer working at the press room, you were now working in the sound room?
Yep, because what ended up happening is my stepdad, he got a position in the sound room, and it kind of that was my option. I could continue to keep going to the press room and working there because that's where my mom would go every day, or I could sleep in an extra half an hour and just walk to the sound room because it was 10 minutes or a 5-minute walk from the house.
Now, can you explain to us what the sound room is?
All right, so every week, this is back when they used cassette tapes, but every week they recorded the sermons and the classes and all that stuff on the cassette tapes. And they sold these cassette tapes for about $3 a piece. And my job was to take the previous night or the previous day's recording, and I put it in this machine, and it had what they called slave drives. And it was just a bunch of tapes, blank tapes that you put into this machine, and you hit the button and it would record that one tape onto like 10 other tapes. And I just did it until the orders were filled.
Brandon, it's funny because that was my job when I first got married and moved and was in the house of Yahweh. That was my job for a long time. I did that.
Really?
I did that out at the farmhouse, so I know exactly what you're talking about. That, yeah, I did that job.
Yeah. Well, I never had a fun job like that. I was flipping papers.
Yeah, I mean, I had to package them, put the label of who it was getting mailed to and stuff too. Did you have to do that? Yeah.
Yep, I had. Well, I didn't have to do the packaging, but I had the computer that had the label of who the sermon was by, what the title of the sermon was, the date, and all that stuff. And then I took that and I boxed it, and then I would bring it home, and the very next day, my mom would take those packages and take them to the press room, and then they had, at this time, they had an actual mail room where they mailed stuff out.
Yep.
Wow. So, Mel, you can ask your question, because my question he had already answered.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So Brandon, were you married in the house of Yahweh before you left?
Yeah. About 20 years old, I got involved talking to a girl that I was not supposed to be talking to, and we were secretly meeting each other. Nothing bad ever happened, like sexually or anything like that we weren't supposed to do. But we were just having conversation. And we got discovered, or, we didn't cover our tracks. And I was told that I could continue talking to her, but it had to be with the intent to marry. And so her dad was actually, who was also her stepdad, he was actually pretty upset about it. And he didn't want me to talk to her at all.
So Brandon, at what year was this? Do you remember?
So about 2002.
Wow. So in 2002, you couldn't even have a conversation with a female member without the intent to marry her.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Continue on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So her dad was pretty upset, and he didn't want me to talk to her at all. And so I wrote this lengthy apology about going behind his back and doing all this stuff. And to be honest, I was not ready to be married. She was not ready to be married.
We understand.
But I was 20 and I had desires. Let's just say that.
Absolutely.
And
we understand.
That was my only way to fill these desires. So I went with it. And they let us start talking. And we never had a conversation unchaperoned, anything like that, up until the day that we got married. We did sneak off a few times and do a few things that we weren't supposed to do, but it didn't result in anything
right
that essentially destroyed.
What would have taken place, Brandon, is if you would have kept talking to her as the weeks, the months transpired, and you were like, I don't want to marry her.
Then that would have been it. I would have gone to my counselors at the time, and because I had been in counseling to talk to other females prior to this one.
Of your choosing?
That time it was my choosing, yes. This is back before they started doing like applications, because they do. Yeah. Do you want to know about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think you need to elaborate. Now you brought it up.
Okay, so after I had been married for about 8 months or whatever, they moved to almost like a matchmaking type thing, but through paper. If you had the desire to speak to somebody, you would fill out a likes and desires paper, and things like that. You would turn it into the office, and they would try to match you up with a female that sent in an application as well. Now, in doing this, they avoided you being physically attracted to somebody.
Right.
Because elders, Israel, they always had first dibs on what they wanted, and then the applicants were what was left, and that's how they treated the guys after that. And of course, the girls that were not desirable to be married, I guess that's kind of a kick in the face if you ask me. Like,
wow. I have another question which kind of backs up to what you were talking about previously. So, okay, so if you had decided you didn't want to marry the girl that you were sneaking away with and stuff, if you had decided you didn't want to marry her, you wouldn't have had to marry her. What would that have meant for her? Because were you already betrothed, technically?
no, at this time we were not betrothed.
Okay.
Once you're betrothed, you're locked in.
Oh, I know, because that's the situation I was in. That's why I wondered if you had decided you didn't want to marry her, would she still have been free to marry somebody else? But because I didn't know the detail if you were betrothed or not, so you weren't.
Right. Yeah, we weren't betrothed yet. That was I went through extensive counseling, I guess that is what they called it. And every single week after services, I was in an office with two elders, and sometimes you got the birds and the bees. Sometimes you got, like what they expected of you as a husband, and sometimes they would ask me what I expected out of my wife, and then they would take what they gathered, and usually her counselors were the wife of my counselors, so they could converse later, share notes, and then the next week they would go to her and be like, hey, he expects this, are you able or would be willing, things like that. And
right.
Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. In my case it worked, but I kind of played the system, like I said, like I had desires, and I had
right.
eavesdropped on enough counseling sessions with my mom and my dad to know what questions and answers they needed, and so that's what I did.
So, I'm sorry, Mel.
Oh, we're good,
script.
girl. Hey, this is the way it goes.
So, multiple marriage then was at the time when you were going to this counseling, were they asking you, are you up for multiple marriage?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I'm a guy. Sure.
No, yeah.
Hell yeah. Like,
yeah.
What guy wouldn't, right? The way that they were displaying it was awesome. But I mean, I look back on it now and I can barely handle one life. Yeah, I mean, there was a time I was actually talking to two females at the same time. But that all fell through. I wasn't ready for that. They knew that I wasn't ready for that, but I was expected to be ready for that because of who my parents.
That's what I was wondering. That's what I was wondering.
That's what you were getting at.
Yeah, and the thing is, Brandon, is you are not the first man to go, yeah, at the time you want me to have multiple wives? Yeah, I'm all for it. But then they're nowadays they're like, I look back at it. Because I've also asked them, what did you think about submission, the women, and to the extent that they made the women submit?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's cool for a guy. You mean anything I say goes?
Yeah.
Sign me up. But as we all know now, it's a two-way street with a marriage. You have your opinion, she has her opinion. You guys kind of meet in the middle and figure out what's going on. But man, back in the day, you're going to tell me that no matter what I say she has to do? Okay.
Well, and that actually leads me into my next question, which is that I know that you are married currently to another ex-member that you met after you both left.
Yep.
So do you think both being ex-members of the House of Yahweh
hold on, Mel. Hold on,
okay.
Just a quick second. Brandon, what happened to the marriage in the House of Yahweh?
Oh.
Okay. All right. So when I decided to leave, I was done. I had ventured out into the world, and I had done some things that I shouldn't have done, but I did it.
Right.
And when I got back, I realized that word had gotten out, and I was about to be in some trouble. So I was like, all right, listen, I'm leaving. How do you feel about that? And she was like, eh. And I was like, all right, I gotta go. We were not legally married. We got married in the faith. We didn't get married on paper or by the courts. So me leaving didn't really mean much for me. Like I said, I was in the relationship mainly for pleasure.
Right.
And not to say that I didn't care about her, because I did. We were together for a little over a year before I left, and obviously I cared greatly for her. She's since left, so I mean, she got her way out, and I'm very happy for that.
Good for her.
But it wasn't with me. After I left for a while, I stayed in contact with her for a few weeks, and then they found out that she was still talking to me, and they cut her phone off, and they cut all contact. Because after I left, she was like, okay, I'm going to work my way out. And then they found out about it and cut it out.
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, I was going to ask my other question, but we're down to and I have a feeling it might be a long answer. So we're down to 7 minutes, so we're going to do that in part 2. So we will be back with Brandon's answer about his current marriage to another ex-member. We'll be back with part 2. Stay tuned.